Thanks, Ken Corla. At the outset, I'd like to echo the comments made by my colleague, Deputy Wallace, in relation to defence matters. It is heartening to know that the Taoiseach, in his own speech earlier, gave our full commitment, obviously, to the Paris Climate Change Agreement, and that the 27 would stand together very firmly on that, and also, indeed, his earlier comments in relation to migration and the digital Europe. They're also welcome, but obviously in relation to migration, he needs to clearly indicate, whether Ireland is living up to the commitments that we have. One of the issues mentioned by the Taoiseach, on which I would have concerns, is European semester, in particular in relation to fiscal policy. Almost all the discussions we've had at the Budgetary Oversight Committee has, in the end of the day, revolved around the fiscal rules, and looking back at that. And we've still amassed, as I mentioned a number of times, that committee a massive national debt, largely imposed on us by the European Commission, and the major European powers, especially Germany, and which makes it so difficult for us to begin the programme again of rebuilding Ireland's infrastructure that's been so badly allowed to fall into decay over the last number of years. So I'd ask the Taoiseach and indeed the new Minister that we would be expecting you to make a really strong fight for us in relation to fiscal leeway, both in terms of current spending for some of the areas that, like an area I mentioned this morning in the leaders' questions in relation to disability, but also in general terms to give us a kind of elbow room we need for our country, particularly given the fact that we are the people most affected by Brexit. Now, I welcome the fact, Cian, of course, that I've been calling, I think, from the time of the result of the referendum for a Brexit minister, and the fact that Foreign Affairs has now become effectively the Brexit department. It is welcome. But I was very disappointed yesterday, Minister. I noticed that Deputy Coveney, he says that there's no question that Ireland is a priority on the first day of the talks, Michel Barnier and the British delegation. I'm looking at a picture of him here with Michel Barnier and sort of congratulating him. And here, Mr Coveney stressed, of course, that Ireland wants to see the closest possible future relationship between the EU and the UK. But the actual account in many of our newspapers today of the first day of talks, it's very disheartening and disappointing. The Guardian, for example, reports that the hopes that we all had for swift progress on any possibility of bringing back a border in this country, they're kind of dashed in a sense already when it was Michel Barnier and again the UK Minister reported afterwards, Mr Davis, that Ireland would no longer be in the first wave of the working groups. So we don't seem to be in the actual negotiation itself. We don't actually seem to be a priority, but we would be subject to a separate, slower dialogue. And the reason for this, apparently given by Minister Davis is that the resolving the common travel area and the Irish border is such a difficult area. It's such a difficult territory. Although many people feel, if you look at the situation with Norway, Sweden, or Switzerland and its various borders, there doesn't seem to have been that same level of difficulty. So some people were categorising the negotiations yesterday as a 3-0 result, where the European Union was 3 and the UK was 0, in that it lost all its main negotiating demands. But in actual fact, we seem to have had a 1-0 result against us as well. So again, I'd ask, it's good to have that at long last we have a Brexit department and the Minister of State is here, but we need to really refocus and to ensure that we are a high priority from day one. Thanks, Ken.